Let's start with this. John Bolton is gone. We had mentioned this on the show yesterday briefly, and because the word just got in that he was gone. And in the main, like, this is a great thing for the country and for world peace. Now, I don't give Donald Trump a lot of credit because John Bolton would not have had to have been fired had Donald Trump never hired him.
Right.
But be that as it may, it's a good thing he is out. For folks who didn't know, and I think hopefully most of the people know, John Bolton was considered to be so out of control in terms of his warmongering and just general disposition that a Republican Senate in 2005, maybe it was 2004, refused to confirm him as an ambassador to the United Nations. He ended up getting, there was a, what do you call it? Bush did a recess break, or I should say a recess appointment, and got him in there for a year. It runs out after a year. Now, for whatever, the Supreme Court, once Barack Obama became president, basically said, oh, yeah, there's no such thing as recess anymore. That doesn't exist. But back in the Bush era, Bolton was a recess appointee. And so the guy's a lunatic. And nobody wants to own him, and nobody wants to be a part of it. And here is Tucker Carlson misinforming. John Bolton was one of the neocons who was promoting the Iraq War back in 2001, 2, up into 3, and then, was certainly cheerleading the efforts afterwards. He was part of that whole cabal of neocons. And here is Tucker Carlson, who I will tell you may have personally not cared about the Iraq War when it was happening, but was on television cheerleading the run-up. I know that he would go, walk out of that CNN studio, have a couple of cigarettes, say, I don't care about this. But when he was on television, he certainly was cheerleading for it. And here he is again, in one fashion or another, misinforming his audience.
If you're wondering why so many progressives are mourning Bolton's firing tonight, it's because Bolton himself fundamentally was a man of...
I mean, I'm wondering what progressives he's talking about. There were, I mean, you saw these tweets, right?
Yeah.
Nancy
Pelosi. Well, they think Nancy Pelosi is progressive.
Right.
Because she's from liberal San Francisco and is a woman and speaks.
Indeed. And she tweeted out something like, John Bolton is a man of honor and the president, blah, 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 which of course is just a sack of crap. The Democrats are trying to make some hay with low information voters, suggesting that, the administration is in total disarray. Now that can be true. And John Bolton going is also good, can be true simultaneously.
What's weird about this, first off, this is the day before 9/11. One of the architects of the Iraq War, and biggest advocates after 9/11, Strange. Also, this is a former colleague of Tucker Carlson's. He's a Fox. I mean, that I find really strange. The dynamic between, pulling back the curtain between the Fox arguments and who Trump is taking his cues from.
Right. I mean, yesterday we saw Brian Kilmeade get an on-air text from Bolton saying the president, essentially the subtext of it saying, I resigned. The subtext being Donald Trump is lying about what happened. Tucker Carlson is part of the sort of like the Pat Buchanan school of conservatism, which is much less interested in foreign affairs and imposing democracy at the end of a gun, like a John Bolton is. And all I can tell you is that in 2004, at I guess it was the Republican, or maybe it was the Democratic National Convention in Boston. a guy comes up to me on Radio Row. They didn't know anything about Air America at the time. And he said, "You guys are liberals, is that right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, well, I'm not with this crew in the White House. I'm a Pat Buchanan conservative. Oh, you know, these guys who are all doing these wars, they're all Jews." Oh. Right? And I was just like, I hear you, my man.
Valerie Plame voter?
Huh?
Valerie Plame's voter?
Very possible. So here, let's hear Tucker explain to us now how progressives are upset about John Bolton.
Tonight. It's because Bolton himself fundamentally was a man of the left. There was not a human problem John Bolton wasn't totally convinced could be solved with the brute force of government. That's an assumption of the left, not the right. Don't let the mustache fool you. John Bolton was one of the most progressive people in the Trump administration.
Well, I don't know what problems he's talking about. I mean, John Bolton was, his whole portfolio was foreign affairs. I don't know that Republicans have been restrained in their involvement in foreign affairs. I don't know if he's been aware of the fact that, we've had multiple wars in the past 2 decades initiated by Republicans.
Is he doing a weird somersault where he defines interventionism as progressive?
I think it's big government. It's like his idea of big government is any spending that enhances the budget of the government, whether it's, and then he's equating that with progressives, saying, well, progressives like big government, not understanding, or of course he knows, he's very sophisticated, he knows this, that expanding the war budget is not something that progressives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you look at the biggest slice of our budget and say that, which is driven by Republican interests. And to be fair, at times too much Democrats go along with it, but it's certainly driven by a Republican agenda. But there he is, Tucker Carlson, once again spreading the truth to his audience. Good for him.